thank you all so much for being here today. I am Jenna Yeakle. I am a campaign manager with the Sierra Club. I am with Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign, which has been working for the past 15 years through our legal campaigning, our communications work, our organizing strategies to accelerate the electric sector's transition to 100% clean energy by 2035. That is our North Star vision. And Sierra Club has been working alongside so many of our community leaders and community members over the last year to stop the proposed Elite and Minnesota Power private equity acquisition since the public announcement was made last May. And this, I just want to remark, this past Monday on Labor Day, right here where we are standing, 50501 Duluth hosted a rally, Workers Over Billionaires. So it is only right that we are here dovetailing on that rally. Our neighbors demonstrated in solidarity with the working class with an urgency to resist Trump's fascist regime that serves the owning capital class. And next weekend, there will be Sun Day events and actions all over the country celebrating our most valuable energy resources and how transformative specifically solar energy is and will continue to be for our economy. And I'm here with you all today to push back against this story that we have been told by Minnesota Power and their potential buyers that they need to be scooped up by BlackRock in order to achieve a carbon-free energy future. And Sierra Club is in this fight with you all precisely because this deal could slow much needed climate action and actually threaten our democracy. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to a wonderful set of spokespeople. I'm first going to introduce Buddy Robinson, a former longtime staff director with the Citizens Federation here in Duluth and currently a board member of the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota.
Good afternoon. I have 45 years of experience advocating for fair rates for Minnesota Power residential customers, previously as staff director of the Citizens Federation. I'm continuing advocacy now as a volunteer member of the Citizens Utility Board. Its core mission is to advocate for fair residential utility rates, including equity between utility owners and customers. CUB is an intervener in this case, but today I am speaking as a private individual and Minnesota Power residential customer. We want the Public Utilities Commission to deny the proposed acquisition of Minnesota Power by BlackRock and the Canadian Pension Plan. Simply put, there is no binding proof that this will benefit ratepayers, the clean energy transition, or even Minnesota Power. However, it will clearly impose large and dangerous risks on all of us. The acquisition is opposed by CUB and the State Office of Attorney General, who each advocate for fair residential rates, also by the large power customers, interveners representing industrial ratepayers, also by Sierra Club and CURE, two clean energy advocacy groups, and also by the administrative law judge, ALJ, who oversaw the entire lengthy proceedings. A key fact established in the proceedings is that BlackRock and CPP, as private equity companies, intend to increase rates faster than would happen otherwise. The ALJ wrote, quote, "The non-public evidence reveals the partners' intent to do what private equity is supposed to do, pursue profits in excess of public markets through company control," unquote. This crucial point was kept secret, out of the public record. The certainty of big rate hikes explains why the taconite companies and paper mills oppose the acquisition. Minnesota Power claims the change is needed to secure enough capital for the clean energy transition. BlackRock says it will provide $1 billion in the next 5 years, but gives no legally binding guarantee and no commitment beyond that. Meanwhile, Minnesota Power has told the Securities and Exchange Commission that it already has the ability to raise this money, while telling the PUC the exact opposite. Supporters of the acquisition assume that BlackRock is a better bet to obtain capital from Minnesota Power compared to remaining a publicly traded company. Yet, BlackRock might decide that others of its thousands of holdings would make higher profits for it and put its capital there instead. And if the PUC, despite unprecedented pressure that will be imposed on it by the new gigantic owners, if the PUC manages to keep rates fair, BlackRock will likely sell off Minnesota Power and put its money in greener pastures. We ratepayers might become the victims of vulture capitalism. One state agency, the Department of Commerce, agreed to a proposed settlement. However, it only offered some minor improvements, such as a 1-year rate freeze. It does not give enforceable, legally binding commitments to provide the needed capital to Minnesota Power. Instead, it offers shell companies with little accountability and the assertion, just trust us. The Department of Commerce previously opposed the acquisition. Their last-minute reversal smacks of political pressure from the governor's office. BlackRock's assets, over $11 trillion, are greater than the GDPs of all countries except the US and China. That kind of economic power boggles the mind. The emerging competition for huge AI data centers looms in the background. Nearby Hermantown, a secretive development is likely earmarked for a big data center right next to a Minnesota Power substation. The reason that Minnesota Power wants the acquisition is to get for its shareholders and executives the windfall of many hundreds of millions of dollars above the true stock value which the new owners are willing to pay. Another reason could be that because they see the ongoing decline of the taconite and paper industries, they want some AI data centers to replace that large load. And they imagine that BlackRock is their best gamble to accomplish this. It is an enormous, reckless gamble, and we hope the PUC will block it. Thank you. Next.
Thank you, buddy. Next, I would like to introduce Angel DeBro, a small business owner in Duluth and a community activist. Angel, take it away.
Hi, my name is Angel DeBro. I'm a resident of Duluth, a small business owner, and a community activist. I am here today to represent all three constituencies. When I moved here in 2017, I basked in the natural beauty of this town and the welcoming feeling of the residents. But there is an underside, a growing lack of affordable housing, steady increases in utility costs, and of course, car repairs. As more people need help meeting their basic needs, less help becomes available. This proposed buyout, which by my reading of the documents is deemed unnecessary by a judge assigned to determine such things, will contribute to this divide. More for BlackRock shareholders, less for the residents of Duluth. As a small business owner, and one of my businesses is being a landlord, my business model of providing affordable housing will be disrupted by increasing electricity costs. We include the cost of utilities in the rent, helping people budget for a reasonable housing expense. Increases in utilities means either rent increases or less profit for me. But to put this in context, I own about $200,000 in mortgaged assets. BlackRock about 10 trillion. Any increase in utility charges will impact me and mine way more than it'll impact them. And as a community activist, I'm specifically outraged at this proposed BlackRock takeover of our local public utility company. I am sick to death of this program of taking from the people to enrich the rich. This is a public utility. BlackRock is a private asset manager. BlackRock has a history of promising no rate changes and then changing the rates. See Northern Michigan. And I repeat, the judge ruled this petition should be denied. I quote, "The commission should deny the petitioner's request for approval and acquisition of Elite Inc. by entities under the control or management of Canada Pension Plan Investment Board and/or Global Infrastructure Partners." In our fragile democracy, you would think that some rules still apply. Elite wants to sell out. A judge holds public hearings, listening carefully to all sides. The judge makes a decision. Implement the decision. I attended one of these public hearings whereby small Elite shareholders spoke against this acquisition, against it. Listen to those shareholders. End runs around this judge's decision smack of anti-democratic process and exude paternalistic, they know better bullshit. The community has rallied against this proposed buyout. The people are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Next, I would like to introduce Cody Pals, who is a Duluth renter and a member of the Duluth Tenants Union. Cody, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Cody Pals. I've been a resident of Duluth since summer of 2019 and a member of Duluth Tenants for 2 years. I know that housing is a basic human right. Similarly, access to affordable, reliable, and clean energy is a right. Our homes and how we turn on the lights should never be a means to privatized wealth and political power. As a Duluth tenant, I'm fed up with paying an arm and a leg for rent while continuing to have basic repairs be ignored. I had to wait over 2 years for a hot shower in my apartment. I know what it's like when profit is prioritized over the services that we rely on every day. 40% of Duluth are renters, and of that group, over half are already cost-burdened. Landlords ignoring repairs and continuing to raise rent means that Duluth tenants pay more and more to live in old homes that are falling apart around them. If approved, this acquisition by the largest private asset manager on the planet is yet another way that my cost of living will increase while the quality of my living actively gets worse. Private equity demands higher profits than normal market investors. One utility in Texas taken over by private equity went bankrupt. Another owned by private equity in Michigan has much higher residential rates than the neighboring utilities. Ratepayers, especially renters, need a stable and dependable utility. This burden disproportionately affects residential ratepayers, homeowners, and renters alike. Duluth Tenants is standing up and organizing to win Duluth Right to Repair to ensure renters in our city can get timely, common sense repairs. I'm proud to say that Duluth Tenants led the effort to collect signatures to put Duluth Right to Repair on the ballot this fall. The commission should pay attention to what the people in Duluth are asking for and organizing for. Putting the power back in the hands of the community instead of those profiting from essential services. The truth is, corporations, whether it's power companies, corporate landlords, or big tech with their data centers, assume that they can get away with squeezing us, the ratepayers, for everything we have, whether it's leaving my shower unfixed or raising our energy bills. I'm here because I'm a ratepayer, taxpayer, rent payer, insurance payer, and payer just to be alive in this country. I'm here because I drink water, breathe air, eat food, and understand that housing is a human right. These rich corporate cronies that have more wealth than 150 separate countries put together think they can charge me even more for what I pay to keep my water hot and phone charged, my apartment cool in the summer and warm in the winter, my home where I interact with friends and unwind after a day's work illuminated, all while polluting our air, our water, and speeding up the climate inferno. Electric utilities ought to be publicly owned and operated by the people who live here and depend on these services to survive. They are public services that should serve the public. They are not assets to be pumped and dumped, to be sold at a massive profit to some other firm with board members who don't live here and think they can impoverish me for even more. I cannot stress this point enough. These capitalist vultures do not have our best interest at heart. The only way we have won against organized money in the past is by organized people standing together. Duluth tenants like me want our utility rates to be fair, a decent house to live in, and our city to continue to be the wonderful city it is. Stand with me and vote yes on question 1 by November 4th and speak out against the Minnesota Power Equity Buyout.
Woo! Thank you, Cody. And thank you to Duluth Tenants Union. Next, I'm going to introduce Banner Moffett, City Councilor with the City of Superior. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Here to talk today a little bit about the larger context here. We've been dealing with some of these issues over on our side of the bridge. As you know, Elite doesn't just own Minnesota Power, but also owns Superior Water, Light, and Power. Our utility company over there, Superior Water, Light, and Power, has had control of our water system, electric and natural gas over there for our residents for over 100 years. Several years ago, after facing difficulties with the proposed natural gas plant, I started doing more research, and some of my council colleagues did as well. And we found that we have the only private water utility in the entire state of Wisconsin, the only one. And it's not just a coincidence, but our rates happen to be drastically higher than other places in the state, both for water, electricity, and natural gas. Specifically, we run into issues, people talking about the safety of our drinking water as a necessity, but I'd keep in mind that the electricity and the natural gas are also important components to this also over there, because you can't have a certificate to occupy your home unit without heat in the winter, right? And we're all in Minnesota and we're in Wisconsin and it gets cold. And how are you going to heat your home in the winter so you can legally live there? It's the natural gas and the electricity, right? And you need to have hot water running through your home as well to have that certificate of occupancy. And so this is all a related issue over there. We started doing more research into our rates. At the same time, Superior Water, Light, and Power was pushing, as they do every 2 years, for rate increases. They asked for a 17% increase for the water rate, and the city fought them and was able to get the rate increase down to just 11%. But I think we all know that 11% isn't exactly inflation numbers, and I'm not sure that most of the community could say that their wages also increased by 11%. The real root issue here is that they have a legal responsibility at Superior Water, Light, and Power and at Minnesota Power Elite to make as much money as they can for their shareholders. That's their responsibility, working for their business. And it's not compatible with our needs as a community because we need to have the lowest possible rates and good, effective services for our residents in order for them to get by. And so as community members, we're struggling to keep our rates down and provide quality systems for our residents, and they're struggling to increase rates as quickly and as possible and as legal as possible as they can. So these just aren't compatible uses. In order to move forward on our side of the bridge, we have actually initiated studies to look into purchasing our utility assets from Superior Water, Light, and Power to help avoid this acquisition. We know the effects would be devastating in terms of rates for our residents, and it's something that people just can't afford. And because those rate increases just aren't compatible with the necessity of having these utilities, our Public Works Committee over in Superior has voted to move forward with a consultant to look at the acquisition of our utility assets from Superior Water, Light, and Power using state statute Chapter 197, the Municipal Acquisition of Utilities. So we have some work going over there, but this process, I think, we have to talk about the larger context, in that just the fact that this acquisition is not compatible and that their interests and their responsibilities as a corporation to bring in record profits are not compatible with our interests as residents to provide quality services at the lowest rate. Thank you.
Hudson, an attorney with Cure and a partner of Sierra Clubs in this proceeding in front of the PUC.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks for everybody who made it out today. My name is Hudson Kingston. I'm legal director at a rural Minnesota organization called Cure. I'm also a rural Minnesotan and a ratepayer of Minnesota Power, like so many of us up in the Arrowhead. We have been participating, as Jenna said, in this proceeding for the last year. We offered briefing, we offered expert testimony, and I'm here to summarize all that in 2 minutes. Minnesota Power is a valued company, a partner and a neighbor. I am a customer, as I said, so are my parents, so are my grandparents. We have been with this company for the long haul. When our power goes out, Minnesota Power comes and fixes it. When we have trees that need trimming on our dirt road, Minnesota Power sends people out for that. When the water on our lake needs to be managed, or the lands that they own up in the Ely area need to be managed, Minnesota Power does its job and has for a very long time. Its staff is better than any other company that I'm aware of. We depend on Minnesota Power for our regional economy, for our heat, for our transportation, and indeed for our clean water. We need this company to continue to make long-term investments in our community and to think about how to increase community resilience. But that's not what this acquisition is about. This acquisition is about maximizing short-term profit. The new owners intend to double the normal profit that a utility would normally be able to put out yearly and recoup a huge amount of money to make up for a $1.5 billion premium they're paying for this company. Until they make that $1.5 billion, they haven't even made a dime on this deal. So they're already starting out in the hole. In order to do that, they're going to have to do pretty risky things. They're going to have to engage in financial engineering. They're going to have to jack up rates, and they're going to have to do things like saddling Minnesota Power with large amounts of debt, which it does not currently have. They're going to have to do things like get rid of some of its biggest assets, its employees, its land holdings, like I said, which the company now sells occasionally, but they could sell wholesale, changing the Arrowhead forever. We have to be concerned about the fact that these companies only hold the companies they buy for a short period of time, on average 7 years. So 7 years from now, Minnesota Power could be a changed company and could be on the market again, much more brittle, much more unable to deal with shocks and downturns in the economy. We at Cure agree with the industrial customers. We agree with the mines and the paper mills. This deal, if it goes ahead, the price is too damn high. We cannot afford it, and it cannot, the clean energy transition cannot be built on the back of our industries and our households. We cannot afford the highest cost clean energy transition. We need to have something that is designed to work for the community and work with the community, and we need to be moving towards energy democracy, not far, far away from it. Rural Minnesotans are not someone else's get-rich-quick scheme. We do not need our utilities to put short-term profits before our long-term well-being. If these investors want Minnesota Power, they should come back with a better offer. One which protects our communities and allows the energy system and economy to grow and evolve to be cleaner and more resilient. We do not need this deal, and it should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, McEwen. And last but not least, our State Senator Jen McEwen of Duluth Senate District 8. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hey everybody, I am State Senator Jen McEwen. I represent Duluth in the Minnesota State Senate, and I am also the chair of the Minnesota Senate Labor Committee. And I am here today in my capacity as the state senator representing this community, and also as a ratepayer of Minnesota Power, to come together with this group of community members who wanted to come today to share our concerns and our worries about this proposed sale. I just would start off by echoing something that we heard a previous speaker say, and that is Minnesota Power has been such and continues to be such an integral part of this community. I have family members that spent their careers working at Minnesota Power. I think the points of connection are many and deep and run through this community. So what happens to Minnesota Power affects all of us, both in terms of the rates we're paying for the basic public good of electric service, and also in terms of the economic well-being of our friends, our family, our neighbors, maybe ourselves, if we're working with or for Minnesota Power. So this proposed sale does affect the entire community and will have ramifications on our entire community. And I'm very glad today to see that there's a lot of media here today to take a deeper look at this and perhaps to start asking some questions about this proposed sale and the effects that it will inevitably have on our community, on the workforce within our community, on the rates that we're paying for electricity, and so on. Just a nod too, as not only am I a ratepayer, but I also, my grandparents and great-grandparents were ratepayers, and my family has owned stock in Minnesota Power. Right now, Minnesota Power is what is called a publicly traded company. So it is it's an investor-owned utility. People make money by buying a share, owning a share, or working for the corporation. It's private in that sense. It's a corporate entity working for profit, trying to make money for its shareholders. But what is being proposed now is a forced sale of all of those shares to two large, huge, in fact, corporate entities, international entities with economic power that is greater than most nation states. BlackRock and the Canadian Pension Plan Fund, with BlackRock being a 60% owner and Canadian Pension Fund being a 40% owner. BlackRock, I want to express a couple of my primary concerns about the proposed sale. And I would say, first off, I just want to talk a little bit about the BlackRock Corporation. I think that a lot of my concern about this proposed sale stems just from the nature of what the BlackRock Corporation is, what it represents, and whether we as a community here in Duluth want to be a part of that and want to be in their portfolio mix of all the things that they're considering when they are trying to gain profit for their international shareholders. The BlackRock Corporation, as many people have said, controls trillions of dollars of assets internationally. So when they become a 60% majority owner of our electric utility, the financial decisions that they're making, whether those decisions be about business strategy, about expansion, about compliance with our clean energy laws here in the state of Minnesota, whether they honor union contracts, how they treat their workers, whether they go for a rate increase or how much, all of those decisions are going to also be affected by the forces that are coming down upon that corporation from their international interests. So one of the concerns that I have expressed, and I've heard many other people express as well, is this inevitable conflict of interest that will arise if the sale goes forward. So BlackRock, as we know, owns many things, utilities. They are an international weapons manufacturer. They own lots of the weapons of war. They're a war profiteer. They have many investments in fossil fuel infrastructure around the world. It is not always going to be in the financial best interest of BlackRock to keep our rates as low as possible, to serve our community the electricity that we need. That's not the business that they're in. They're in the business of making profit from as many things as possible. So that inherent conflict of interest is very concerning to me, and I think that we need to take a closer look at it. I'm also very concerned about the lack of transparency that we're seeing both in this proposed acquisition, and then as we would go forward, if the sale is to go through, that we would have even less transparency than we do now about the business decisions that Minnesota Power would be making. A lot of people have pointed out correctly that the Minnesota PUC would still need to give approval and would still exercise regulatory authority over Minnesota Power decision-making about rates increases and certain business decisions. And that is true. But there are a couple things that would change, and I think that those things that would change are really important for people to think about and understand. So as I said in the beginning of my comments, right now, you could go out and you could buy a share of Minnesota Power. If this deal goes through, you will not be able to do that anymore. It will be taken off the public markets and we'll have two mega corporate owners. And you won't be able to buy into that corporation anymore. Those two owners will have a controlling say of the board of Minnesota Power. So their decisions will be the decisions for the corporation. Although the PUC will still have to approve certain decisions that the corporation makes, as we've heard and as we've seen evidenced over past years, there is tremendous pressure on the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, both political and economic pressure, to make certain decisions that will make sure that the company will continue to hum along and provide the services that we all need. So there is politics involved in what the PUC decides, and this is a lot of pressure if this deal goes through to put on our Minnesota PUC to try to wrangle these international corporate behemoths, especially when they're not going to have access to the full range of records to understand the motivations of what is really behind decisions that the business is making. And one of the ways we already have seen this play out is in the ALJ's decision, the administrative law judge's decision, where the administrative law judge said, you know, there's a lot of information that's redacted. If you look at the decision, it's all these black marks where you can't read the information because it's proprietary business information. And some of that is understandable. But that means that we don't know a lot about what is behind the sale. And the ALJ, the judge, confirmed her opinion was that a lot of the information that was redacted is really important when you think about what the motivation is for this proposed sale. There are some people that have that information and know what that information. I am not one of those people. Your state senator does not have that information. I do not know what is behind some of those decisions leading to them wanting to make the sale. But that lack of transparency right now stands to get even worse if the decisions and the motivations for decisions with Minnesota Power that affect our community are coming not just from the board of directors of Minnesota Power as it is now, or the boardrooms of the executives that exist now for Minnesota Power, but very separated from our community, perhaps completely separated, and not really thinking of us at all. So in conclusion, I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. Thank you so much for asking these questions. And I stand with you. I have these questions as well. And I come to this with curiosity and a good faith desire to understand why the Minnesota Power executives and board would want to go through with a sale like this, especially in light of such a scathing opinion from the administrative law judge, who, as someone else said, really did a very thorough job conducting the hearing and looking at all the evidence. So with those concerns, I join in them, and I thank everybody for coming out today.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you all so much for being here today and demonstrating your opposition to this proposed sale. Thank you so much to our folks at the press for asking questions, for being here, for following this issue that is so critically important to Duluthians and to Minnesotans in the Northland. Thank you to our community members for showing up. When I notified Minnesota Power that we would be here to do a press conference, I said 30 minutes tops, and there may be like 10 or 12, maybe 15 people because it is a 2 p.m. press conference on a Wednesday, and you all exceeded certainly my expectations, and I'm sure you are exceeding theirs, so please give yourselves a round of applause. I would like to wrap up with this. If approved, this acquisition would have such serious consequences, as our spokespeople just so eloquently described, for communities in similar situations across the country right now. Dramatically increasing economic wealth inequality between the ultra-rich and everyday working Minnesotans. Slowing Minnesota's progress in addressing the climate crisis by doubling down on extractive and exploitative economic models. And third, eroding democracy and governance for the people by handing over immense political power to Wall Street billionaires. And I am urging our commissioners to take stock in this moment in 2025, in this political moment. We are all experiencing mass wealth hoarding, deadly power grabs, and climate catastrophe after climate catastrophe. We're experiencing that here in Duluth, Minnesota right now. And I want to leave you all with this by sharing some words from my personal hero, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, from her book, What If We Get It Right? Visions of a Climate Future. And I included some of these excerpts in my personal public comment to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. She writes, "If we get it right, the combustion phase of humanity is over. We no longer burn things to make energy. The air is cleaner, the water is cleaner, asthma and cancer are more rare again. Communities of color are no longer overburdened with pollution. Turning forests into biomass pellets for energy is an absurd remember when. If we get it right, Our democracies are robust and truly representative. Every vote is equal and counted and easily cast. Politicians have been wrested from the stranglehold of the fossil fuel industry. There are no more petrostates enabling petrodictators. And she says, if we get it right, the extractive fossil fuel economy is out. The renewable, regenerative economy is in. And I so deeply and urgently agree with Dr. Ayana. In other words, what she is communicating is that a private equity buyout of a homegrown electric utility would be getting it wrong. And we know that the evidence is clear. In this case, this acquisition would cause serious harm for Minnesotans, threatening to burden us with higher utility bills, eroding local control. Oh, I lost my place. Eroding local control and transparency, and jeopardizing the commitment that Minnesotans have made in its clean energy future through the 100% carbon-free standard. So the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission will be making a decision this fall, and we expect that they have heard loud and clear that Minnesotans, especially those of us living and working across the Northland, those who would be most impacted by an approval of this deal, are very firm. Commissioners must find that this proposal is inconsistent with the public interest, and they must reject this private equity acquisition.